movie was a good movie, right? But you must understand, they did a survey. Well, tell the black woman or the black man, are you going to see Contact? No, I ain't going to see that shit. You see, you ain't into what it is. Time is out for the foolishness. Don't you know that they came to the Academy Awards this year, and as a result, none of the American films hardly got any awards because they're saying that white people are saying now, not the idiots, you got a lot of idiots out here. I'm not talking about them, I'm talking about a group of white people that run the country saying, we are tired of movies that don't challenge us intellectually or spiritually, for what little spirit they have. So therefore, we want movies to either make us think if it ain't spiritual, or we want the shit that we don't see normally. So therefore, that's what the agenda is for all movies now. You see. But yet, we still up in here with this bullshit. And the white boy done abandoned all that. Just something that you need to know at this particular time on what's actually going on. So now, let's deal with some things. I told you that in this particular book here, The Black Sun, there's some things in here about mumia. And mumia was how white people used to eat the mummies. And they actually would get rejuvenated and revitalized. And I should have got somebody go get me some tissue out of the bathroom. You know, this light is hot. You know, or some of the brown stuff or whatever. Yeah. That's by Peter Moon. It's called Black Sun. And they used to actually be revitalized. That is actually vampirism, and that's the vampirism on what they was talking about based on vampires. That's what they were actually talking about. That's what they were actually talking about. And so when you see these white people talking about vampires, and I've said this before, they're actually talking about eating melanin. And basically, and that's what they're talking about. And so whenever you see that, you know what's actually going on at this particular time. Okay, let's wipe off a little bit. And we got a lot to cover, so don't worry about that. We understand that the white boy was experimenting with LSD. With LSD. I guess you're going to have to get that all off or whatever. It started leaking. The white boy was experimenting with LSD. And as a result, this is the closest he has gotten to tapping into some melanated form of existence from the 60s, where they were very hurt after they shut down the whole LSD trip for them. Also, especially you got Timothy Leary, who died recently, that never forgave the government for shutting down all the LSD experiments because they didn't want the amount of, see, when they shut down certain things, it's not like the government doesn't experiment with it. They just have a group of elite people, the Illuminati, say, no, we got research that's going on secretively. We don't want the main public to understand what the hell is going on. So, but anyway, we even found out that LSD is the main thing that created this whole Microsoft and this Bill Gates shit. You see, this whole Bill Gates thing, which we know now that Bill Gates is considered, number one, he's in his early 40s. Is it late 30s?
I'm 35.
Huh?
I'm 35.
No, he's older than that. About 37 or 38. Okay, yeah. Now we know that this Bill Gates is actually acting as he is the Messiah for the European based on a New Age Messiah or a computer Messiah. He is the Messiah for them. As a matter of fact, you got to go back and look at the movie The Net. And the whole shit was based on something called the Gatekeeper. That's Bill Gates. The Gatekeeper. That's Bill Gates. So you need to study the movie The Net again and find out what's actually going on, because all the shit that was going on up in there has something to do with Bill Gates, which is a form of the Messiah for them. That's why he came down to Atlanta this summer in June and gave the Atlanta University about $8 million. You see. Gave them about $8 million for some computer research. You see. So he's basically the Messiah that they're actually talking about at this particular time, that they're actually talking about. And so you need to go back and look at that particular movie. You know they have genocide. They had an HBO special and they had genocide. It's still on the hard copy. You know that they had an HBO special and they actually have a mass genocide right now in Kansas City. They had an HBO special that came on about 2 months ago. And they got brothers dying in Kansas City like 2 and 3 a day. Now, when they say 2 and 3 a day, you know that it's a lot more than damn 2 and 3 a day in the type stuff. So they have the actual genocide going on and all. Anyway, you can get that HBO special that's actually talking about that. I told you before that it's time for you, and I said this the last time, to this great, now that you can go and study the Greek myths, because the Greek myths was a group of black people. The original people who started Greece was a group of black people called the Etruscans. And lo and behold, I said that a couple of months ago, and I've been saying it for the last couple of months. The Etruscans started both Greece and Rome. And now there's a book out on the Etruscans. And I didn't get the name of the actual book. I didn't write the name of the book down. But there's a book out on the Etruscans. So this is more research for people that's historically minded. You go get it. They sell it. I saw it at Barter's bookstore. And if you go to any historical section in these bookstores, you might be able to get that book. But this is another thing we say, we're just uncovering history of our particular people. But the key was, they got some stuff called runes. Anybody know what runes are? Runes are these divination systems that supposedly came out of Europe. But when we ask, well, where did they get it from? The channel came say something by some way of Egypt or Hemmitt. And what the real deal is when I got this particular book on the Etruscans and they showed the Etruscan writing, it was the same writing that was on these runes were on the Etruscan writing. So that means that we're talking about a group of black people that even traveled up into Europe at that particular time. So I'm proposing also that you start working with the runes. If you go to Barnes and Nobles, they sell them real cheap, and you can get the box and the whole set. So start working with the actual runes at this particular time also. At this particular time, there's no such thing as secrets no more. What I mean by that is the only reason why this so-called Masonic stuff was even kept a secret is not because we didn't have secrets in ancient African society. We had ancient spiritual systems that we went to learn spiritual knowledge. So the so-called secret societies that they're talking about, they had to have secret societies in Europe because after the Moors came up and taught the cracker, they had a fight against the doggone Pope of Rome and the Inquisition, and if they didn't keep stuff secret, what would actually happen is they would get killed. So all spiritual stuff in Europe had to be sworn to secrecy. So it don't mean now that in this particular time that you think you got a certain amount of knowledge and you keeping shit secret. You're supposed to be sharing it. Because the real mystery is there are no secrets. There are no secrets. Everything now is put out because it's prophesied that it would actually be put out at this particular time. There has never been a time when this much knowledge has been on the planet. But the reason why this particular knowledge is on the planet is because the government who put all this knowledge out realizes one thing. That at this particular time, they can't even hit a person over the head and get them to receive the knowledge if it ain't talking about money. Now, to go into some Kabbalistic mysteries, and we got a lot of stuff, so don't worry about it. We can still get warmed up. The Kabbalistic mysteries is, or the Kabbalah mysteries is, that you got 5 books of Moses. And the 5 books of Moses is called the Torah. But the 5 books of Moses, each book represents a certain element. Earth, fire, air, water, and the physical body, which would, or the spiritual body inside of the physical body, which would be the 5th element. The key here is that the Torah, which I'm going to get into when I go into the 37 negative confessions, because we got to get into this whole moralism thing. The key here is that the Torah is talking about here, each one is a certain element, and a certain element exists inside of you. And we're talking about melanin. So the 5 books of Moses is actually the 5 elements of melanin, or the process of melanin. That's the main key. And like I said yesterday, because they had to go and give a person a certain moral law, that was an animal person, that don't mean that it has anything to do with you. You have the book on the inside of you. You see. So we're talking about the elements. So also going back to what I said yesterday, you don't need to be doing anything on a moral thing as far as worshiping anything at this particular time. Your worship is in the form to understand who you are on a higher level. You see what I'm saying? So you also have the Torah, which is also the 5 books, is also the Akashic records. And the Akashic records is the melanin inside of you. And it tells you that in the last days these books will be open and you will read from these books, and if your name is not in the books, you'll be cast in a pit of fire. And that means the Akashic records, which the word Akash in India means the black. So the Akashic records are the black records, is the melanated records. So therefore, if your name is not in the melanated records, it means that you don't have melanin, so therefore you be cast in a pit of fire. You see what I'm saying? So, we're talking about, this is what the Torah, as well as the so-called Bible, is supposed to mean, as meaning it is a records that need to be accessed from the inside of you, other than you reading the actual Bible. But if you do read the Bible, you're supposed to read the Bible as a form of reference to try to understand the accessing of those particular records. And before we leave out here, we'll give some esoteric Christianity doctrine that the people can go and read to try to understand an esoteric version of that particular Bible. And as a matter of fact, one of the best books is The Secret Wisdom of the Bible, 4 volumes. Breaks down everything in the Bible esoterically. Secret Wisdom of the Bible by Godfrey Hudson, volume 1 through 4, 4 volumes. Secret Wisdom of the Bible. That's the one that you actually want. By Godfrey Hudson is the one that you want. Secret Books of the Bible. That's and it breaks down that. Also, there's a book, Esoteric Christianity, by Annie Besant, a little small book. Very key also that you actually get that particular part. At this particular part. It says in the last days that we will be able to read from the white Torah. Now what does that mean? That right there, it means that the Torah that they're talking about, of these so-called spiritual books, is not necessarily talking about the book, but the white Torah is talking about the spaces in between the words. If you got a page, there's spaces in between the actual words that is actually talking about reading the spiritual stuff that you can't see with the naked eye. You'll be able to see in another dimension once those particular Akashic records open up. So that's the reason why you have the Vodun drum, or the voodoo drum, or the Vodun drum, or the African drum. It's not necessarily the beat, it's the spaces in between the beat. Because the spaces in between the beat, which you think is nothing, is actually something. And how do you hear nothing? A beat, if you take one beat and another beat after it, not only have you heard the 2 beats, but you've heard a pause in between, and that's the spaces in between the beat. You see? And that's actually spiritual.
Is that why white people don't have no rhythm?
Right. They can't deal, they can only deal with this dimension.
Right.
They can't deal with the spaces in between the actual beat. So therefore, that's why they're all thrown off. It's the spaces in between the beat, which is the main thing on what we're talking about here at this particular time. Now, let's go on. The white boy at this particular time understands that prophecy is catching up with him. There's something that was born in on some reservations, in the Middle East sometime last spring. They had this red heifer that was born. Now, if you get the book of Enoch, and in the book of Enoch, they talk about this particular red heifer. And they say that in the last days, this so-called red heifer is supposed to be born. In the Native American, it's the white buffalo.
Right.
So we got 2 prophecies that were fulfilled. The Native American had the white buffalo that was born in '94, and the red heifer was born this year, somewhere in the Middle East. Now the problem is the fake Jew understands that these prophecies are catching up with his ass, and ain't shit happening to them. They get fucked up with the Arabs over there, messing them up. And ain't nothing happening to them, because even in William Bramley's book, The Gods of Eden, he made a joke saying that all these prophecies is coming down, but yet the so-called Jews we see, and none of it being fulfilled around them. So now this fake Jew is into fulfilling the prophecy himself. So what he's actually doing is, the red heifer was born. It had a flaw on it. But they said that the heifer that was supposed to be born is supposed to be perfect. They didn't realize that it was perfect because they was talking about its spiritual energy was perfect. So what they have done is gone down to Kansas City and have created a fake red heifer. And they say, now this is the one that has fulfilled the prophecy of us. Now how the hell are you going to go down and genetically create a fake red heifer and saying it's the prophecy being fulfilled with us? You see what I'm saying? So now they are actually in the prophecy business at this particular time because stuff is not coinciding with them. Also, we have to understand this. There was a part that happened in 1991 where the fake Jew went into Ethiopia and airlifted up some Ethiopians, the philosopher Jews, and they were saying in that type of thing that in actuality that we have fulfilled the prophecy because one day the so-called Cushi or the Cushite Jew was supposed to come home. So here's another way where the fake Jew is actually trying to fulfill prophecies at this particular time because time is running out. We're going into the millennium or whatever the deal is, and ain't nothing happening to him, and he's still getting fucked up over there, and all his leaders dying. And like one brother from Lebanon told us, if the United States government was not in on the whole thing with Israel, they could take over Israel in 24 hours, the Arabs of that whole land. And they're not fighting Israel, but they're fighting the United States government. Very key. England and all of that type of thing. What we also need to understand is something based on the Nephilim. Now there's the book called Breaking the God Spell, dealing with the actual Nephilim. The other book is you're going to have to go to a comic book store, and there's another book, but that's where all the stuff is. There's another big book put out called the Nephilim. And in that particular book, it has a lot of science, but they say who the Nephilim are. They say the Nephilim, make sure that the Nephilim are people. You will find most of the Nephilim in jails now. But they say there's a lot more than just them being oppressed. Basically, they are rebellious in nature because they have been around long enough subconsciously to see different laws change over the years, especially with these damn white boys. So therefore, they are rebelling against the actual laws and stuff. On a spiritual level, they are rebelling against the confinement of their spirit not being able to manifest on a higher level. When we go into some ancient, some other metaphysical things tonight, we're going to break down certain laws that restrict us at this particular time. So let's go on. Moses anointed Aaron because Moses anointed Aaron. The Hebrew mythology, it was first an elaborate mythological system that was later on historicalized and turned into history. What is actually happening here is it was turned into actual history. So for every Hebrew character, it means that they never necessarily existed in history. So if you understand that, you can line them up with the Egyptian mythology. So Moses would be Tahuti in the Egyptian mythology. You got the staff of Tahuti, you got the rod of Moses. You see what I'm saying? You got the rod of Moses, which would be Tahuti also, is what it would actually be. Very key to understand that. We're just going along, we're going to line up some things at this particular time, but I want to get through a couple of things right now on some Kabbalistic mysteries. The Jordan River that Jesus was baptized in is actually your Kundalini, because you are the Christ and you're being baptized by the river, which is the flow of the energy of your Kundalini. You see, in the angelic realm of the Kabbalah, you're supposed to have 72 deities. And also you have 72 spinal cords, even though you levels of the spine, because you also have a frontal level of the spine which is invisible. And the chakras line up on that. But you also have 32 levels of the spine, which in actuality you get your 33rd degree with, which is talking about 32 levels of the spine, which is 33 levels of the spine and 33 levels of actual consciousness, which has nothing to do with you going in some order and calling yourself a 33rd degree, when most black Masons don't even believe that the Hemmites or the Egyptians even had anything to do with Masonry, because most of them don't even know what an Egyptian is. You see what I'm saying? So, so that's very key that you understand that at this particular time. I want to get into some other things right now. And that is, let me see here, the history of Hermetica. The Hermetic text is some text that was in the Library of Alexandria that was smuggled out. The Hermetic text, if you ever get your hands on it, you can go and get this book, if you can get your hands on this, by Walter, what's this guy's name? Hermetica. I think his name is Walter Scott. And in that particular book, Walter Scott's book, they say that the greatest thing that ever happened in the history of man is man was able to make a man. So it's in there, but it also says, right in the particular book, and I often wonder why the Afrocentric scholars would read certain material and then all of a sudden turn around and say that we still come from damn monkeys and apes, just like the damn white boy. Well, and in the material, the Hermetic materials, it literally say that you got two races of men, and one of the races of men don't have a damn soul. Don't have an actual soul. And I often wondered, why is that? When I got the same books that some of the people, some of the same authors came and told me to get, and when I started reading this stuff, I find shit that was totally different. You see what I'm saying? That was totally different. That's very key, and I often wondered why that was going on. Going around, how many people saw this particular information on TV where they said that King Tut married his sister? It was on Discovery.
Sexual secrets from Pharaoh.
Yeah, something like that. But anyway, they did this whole thing. They really didn't even go into that. But they was trying to find out whether the Egyptians or the Canaanites at that particular time, what race they were. And they dug up a particular mummy, and they opened up the skull of this mummy, because they said that usually the brain was removed. And the guy took his hand and felt around in the skull. And when he pulled it up, he had this, he said there's some black resin that's in the skull. Did you see that? Which was in actuality melanin is what they was actually talking about. But this is what it says here. It says, the universal genetic truth about the Egyptians, royals, using DNA from 3,000-year-old mummies. What does this mean for our own genetic future? Now, I don't know if I mentioned to you the last time, but what's actually really happening here is this. They are interested in this because they have museums all over the country. And they got museums all over the world, and right now there's a fight on to get the mummies that they haven't already eaten. So now they got this war going on that they're trying to recover the mummies. The reason why they have this war going on is because, based on DNA cloning now, they have already brought a certain amount of pharaohs back, to try to learn about ancient history, to try to carve out a niche to save themselves. So they have come and actually cloned and brought back a certain amount of pharaohs. It's interesting here because in 1994, I ran up on a book in Barter's bookstore that was talking about this, but I was short on cash and the store was about to close. So I said, I'll hide the book, come back tomorrow morning and get the book. But for some reason, they must have was looking at me at the time, because when I came back the next day, the damn book was gone, and I never ever saw the book again. And it was talking about how they brought back Ramesses and they cloned Ramesses. The key is, there's only one problem about this. So now they're going in and they're taking these mummies and they're actually trying to bring them back. to try to find information. The only problem is most of the pharaohs were honorary priests. They were in the mystery system, or what you want to call the educational system, but they were honorary. They were not high priests. So the information that they're trying to get, they can't get because you ain't never saw no damn high priest mummified. You see, and that's the key. They have different monuments on priests and different statues on priests, but they don't have any mummies on priests because the priests never mummified themselves. Because they can look into the future and they probably actually understood what would actually be going on in this particular time. So they didn't mummify themselves. You see, very key that that you understand that particular information that's going on. But I want to stress that you can go to the comic book store and get this particular information on this book called the Nephilim book. It costs about $20, but it has a whole lot of information in it. Now, last night I want to go back into this thing because I want to get into some mental alchemy at this particular time. What time is it, first of all? 20 to 10. 20 to 10? Yes. Okay, look, you want to take, I'll tell you what we want to do.
25.
You got, the people got food back there, so what I want to do is I want to, before we get rolling, I want to take a little break. You go back and you can utilize some of the stuff on the table. And then when we come back, I want to get into the main portion of the actual lecture, and so we can deal with this and don't have to break no more. But I don't want to do it, and then we have to break, and the people got the stuff back there and all, and we don't deal with that at this particular time. So you do that, we're going to come back. We still got time, and we got a lot more we need to deal with. We got to wait around for the alchemical portion dealing with the melanin that we need to understand on how you going to access some things. Is first of all, you need to go back and get the movie The White Buffalo, done in 1977 with Charles Bronson. It was also put out by Dino De Laurentiis, who was the guy who also brought you Dune. He was the guy that produced the movie Dune. The movie was put out 100 years after the death of Crazy Horse, which is very spiritual because now this is 120 years after the death of Crazy Horse, which was another brother that fought in the struggle when we say the Native American whole deal. And we say that because you know that 98% of the Native Americans was about this brother here color in the 20th century. Then all of a sudden, you start getting these particular white people now talking about their Native Americans and all. But if you go see any pictures of Native Americans starting around the 20th century, they look like this brother here color. And that's very key that you understand that. But go get the white buffalo again, because you understand the prophecy of the white buffalo is also a spiritual prophecy. It's a prophecy that was also supposed to happen too. Also, we want to deal with one other thing too. Now at this particular time, what we need to start dealing with now is we got to start dealing from the heart chakra. Because the energy of Olokun, which is an energy that is now, Olokun is an energy, but also an Orisha that is supposed to be chained up under the sea. But it's a particular energy that would be released in the last days, and the energy would be dealing with undercurrent thoughts. So therefore it means also that you can't cloak anymore. If you're not real, it will show. You can't cloak or you can't doggone hide ulterior motives and undercurrent thoughts because the energy now won't allow that. And basically your own spirit now will tell on yourself because your spirit is actually the Olokun energy that is chained up, that is now back released. Very key that you understand that. The point I want to get into now, we're going into a whole nother rhythm this particular time. We're going into the science of the mind and what we actually need to be doing by another type of thought process. And that is this. That is this. Now, like I said, with this book, Philip Cooper, when you buy this book, The Magician, you're going to thank me. The ones who want books that go through the no-nonsense, you see. They go through the no-nonsense and get straight to the actual point. But the point I want to deal with right now is I want to deal with sacred dance. If you ever see melanin, melanin is also called chaos. Chaos. And melanin looks like some stuff that looks like this. It's chaos. is chaos, which means that this particular energy cannot be put in a box. And when you try to put this in a box, as far as trying to put it or name it or put it in one type of system, you kill the energy. And what I mean by that is, our energy does not deal with one type of structure, fundamentalistic way of thinking or fundamentalistic way of looking at your higher self through religion. The moment you try to bottle the melanin or try to put it in one type of category, you lose the whole meaning of it, for the simple fact it is that which cannot be named, and it is multidimensional. So what that means is we get into doggone debates on whether we Moorish, whether we Camite, whether we Islam, whether we Christian, whether we this, whether we that. And that's because we were all that at one time. The key is because you were all that at one time, and you were something way more than that at this particular time. Because you were all that at one time, you must understand that to put it as a variation as 1 degree, I'm just a Moor, or I'm just Islam, means that you break it down and you don't understand the concept that you are even greater than all of that which came before. Now the key is that what we're dealing with here is this. When we're talking about understanding chaos, how can you put a name on this? It is that cannot be named. So therefore, the white boy understands that you get into the cultural argument on the different variations of what you want to call yourself and what you want to be as, and what you want to worship. I only want to study this one discipline. Well, the white boy realized, he said, hell, I didn't come from none of that. And ain't nothing on the doggone earth I invented. So therefore, I got to jump on all the people in the cultural baggages that separating themselves, arguing over who was first and what was this, and was it this group of black people, was it this group of black people, when you were unnameable and you got 1,000 different names of when you occupied the earth. So by him understanding, by him being an outsider, he studies it all. And that's how the melanin works. Soon as you just say, well, I just only study Egyptian. What the fuck is that? You automatically kill it. I just only study the Moorish thing. I just only study the Islamic thing. You automatically kill, which is melanin. So what it is melanin is a multidimensional type of energy. So therefore, the ancients knew that they would show you multidimensional types of deities for you to understand that it's not just this one deity. And what I mean by that is, the melanin is one. But just as it is one, it is not just one concept. It has different attributes. So therefore, to understand a multi-deity panel, what you call a pantheon, or you call polytheistic, is the great way the melanin works. To understand the different mythological stories is the way the melanin works. To shut it down and to start worshiping and to start saying, hey, it's all about being humble and being submissive in these particular, what you call organized religions. If you shut it down like that, you don't learn anything and you become stagnant. So therefore, these work better, the melanin work better on a multi-deity principle. You get what I'm talking about? Which means that you got to put all of it together and you got to study it all. Case in point. One of the keys which makes melanin function even better is dance. Now what the European has done recently is he has come in and he has studied that every time you used to dance and get down, some of them would get sick. Yes. On the other hand, you used to heal yourself by dancing and getting down, and this was a system that you used to have. Okay, now. So basically what what he has done now is he has modified the music to even your rap music now has a slow tempo. You can't really dance to it. So you can't really release the energy. It's laid back. So you only got two kinds of music. Dance music and slow music. And the slow music is one of the really bad slow music. It's not the slow music of the 70s. With different range of orchestration. It's just a boom, tick, boom, tick. Which there is no music at all to catch on to. And it has a synthesized dry sound to it. As well as the rap not being music at all, because this is a bunch of just cut up old albums from the 70s. Which destroys melanin. In the concept that you think that the shit is the voice of the ghetto, they have changed that in the last 2-3 years. The only reason why you don't think so is because you're used to the shit. And you just get used to hearing something, that's all you got. But anyway, you used to dance, and the dancing would get in touch with the multi-deities or the multi-systems of the brain. Now let me explain something to you here. You can understand this particular information. Dance is the most direct form of expression. For many native people, it is the direct access to the gods, or in this case, the deities. Because it's like the sister said that the word God is a German deity with blue eyes and blonde hair. So we will say Netta, Neteru, Nephilim, deities. There's several names. You see what I'm saying? Or what we would actually call them. Even the Titans. The Australian Aborigines, for example, enter into dream time through dance. This is the time in which the deities have lived and still live. So you have a higher self, for the lack of a better word, that are the gods that they're actually talking about, are the deities that they're actually talking about. And they used to live, which means you used to live on a higher plane. To get back to that higher plane, you have to go back into dream time, because dreaming is reality.
Yeah.
So therefore, in which they have created a world that still continues to do so. Through their dance, the dream time becomes the present. In dance, they experience the power of the spirit and ancestors. And in their movements, they reenact the deeds of these particular deities, of which the myth of dream times tell. So what we're saying here is, they have come in and they have destroyed basically dance music. Whereas everybody is hip-hopping, but nobody is releasing the energy to get in touch with your multi-archetypal God self through the dance. The dance is the only time when black people could do a movement that is not calculated by science. Because there is no science to calculate some motherfucker going down a Soul Train line that'll do a movement that ain't nobody seen before, and he can't duplicate it. You see? So we're talking about, that's what melanin is. How can you put a name on dance? It just is. So on the other hand, it's the same thing when you're dealing with the deity system. The deity system has got to be multi-dimensional. So we just didn't have one God, Allah, that we bow down to. No, we had the 99 attributes of Allah that Muhammad knew about, and Muhammad knew about and actually told the people to worship the Allah thing, because Bilal was his motherfucking teacher. That taught him all the shit he knew. And ain't no goddamn angel Gabriel came and whispered no shit in his ear that he didn't already know, because his damn daddy was a Sufi Kushite Muslim, or at that particular time a Sufi Kushite mystical person of Arabia. So now, dealing with this particular thing we're talking about, we have to get into a form of nihilism. which means you have to go to a system of blasphemy to go against every structure that the American government and your thought of what you call religion has taught you. If it says one thing, you have to do the other, because that's the way you get the melanin to working. Because the religion we have had to bow down to, if you are the creator, or you are the deity, or you are the angelic most high beings, then the only way that you can understand to be the angelic most high beings is not to be worshiping the angelic most high beings, but to act as one of them. But every religion we've had is set against, as far as the organized religion where you worship, is set against you going back to your original nature. So therefore, what you have to do is, everything that's out of order is what you need to go to. Because order stops chaos. You bring order to chaos. Well, we brought order to chaos for a certain reason a couple of million years ago. But this particular realm is gone now, so we must disorganize chaos, which you're good at anyway. Disorganization. CP time being one of them. When we get there, that's just the way it is. You see? So, your deities or your energy can't evolve, or you can't tap into your particular energy with the system or the way you have been trained to look at religion. You see what I'm saying? Oh, they used to worship many gods. No, they were only trying to define the one God, which is melanin, which is chaos, which is always moving. How can you define water? You just have to list every element in it so you can basically get a concept of what this particular thing is. You get where I'm coming from? And this is what we have to do at this particular time. We'll go back to that in a few minutes. I want to deal with some things in the Bible right now. Because in the Bible, that's going to be Genesis 32:30, 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 4, 1 Corinthians chapter 8, verse 25. So that's Genesis chapter 32, verse 30, 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 4, and 1 Corinthians chapter 8, verse 25, which it says that Jacob wrestled with the angel, or Jacob was one of the only people who saw the face of God. The face of God is called Pineal, which is pineal. But in the Bible, it will be P-E-N-A-E-L. Pineal in the Bible. El means sun, or star, or the star-head ones. Pin comes from the word penis. Penis. You have two penises. Both man and woman can't get to God now unless it's circumcised, but the woman don't suppose to have a certain penis down there, but the penis she does have down there is already circumcised. That's the clitoris. So she comes with the circumcised penis. The man has to circumcise his penis. The woman has a clitoris, which is a form of a penis. But they're not talking about the lower level genitals. They're talking about the high level genitals that both male and female have a penis, which is the pineal gland. And an uncircumcised penis is the calcified pineal gland. So you're born with a circumcised penis. So when they say a pineal gland comes from pine cone, no. The pine cone, the penis was before the pine cone. So when they named the pine cone, they named it because it looked like the head of the penis. So pine cone or pine cone is later, but first you have penis, a pineal. So penis, so pineal So what is the penis? The penis gives the seed, which is melanin. And in that seed is the cosmic substance that is the makeup of a star, stardust, which is star is L. Pineal is the pineal, which is the star penis, or pineal, which is the seed. You get the word seed, you get the word star, all that's talking about melanin. Pineal or pineal in the Bible is called the face of God. So the face of God is in you, which you're supposed to be understanding is not a God up there, but a God that is manifested down here, which is in your pineal gland, is the face of God. Go get the movie King David, 1985, with Richard Gere, where it said that only Moses and Jacob have seen the face of God. And his name was Pineal, or Pineal. His name was Pineal. Right there in the King David, 1985. Then study the life of the King David, because there used to be a mythological part, and King David is actually Horus and a form of Osiris that they put in another version. You see what I'm saying? But David, in the movie and in the mythos, slew Goliath, which is the giant, with a slingshot, but what really killed him? A pebble. Right? The mystery is metaphysical. Goliath means in actuality the artificial realm that we're stuck in. In the artificial government that oppresses us. But you can't slay that government with a bullet, because he got more bullets. You can win the battle, but you can't win the war. But you can slay him with a pebble. Well, what is the pebble? The pebble is a stone. And the stone is called a philosopher's stone, or the stone that the builders rejected will become the cornerstone. And the philosopher's stone is nothing but the breakdown of melanin. So when Goliath slew David, Goliath was slain by David by a stone. It was talking about David. The Star of David is two inverted pyramids, as above, so below, which is the same as the Eye of Heru. It's the same thing, if you understand the symbology, which is the same as melanin, which is the star is in your head. The black dot is the Star of David. But he slew him with a pebble. It's a metaphysical alchemical or alchemical term of the philosopher's stone, which is a stone that is not just a stone that is on the earth like any other stone you find, but this stone has an extraterrestrial origin, which means it is made up of a composite that is not found nowhere on earth, but only found in the black woman and black man. A composite in the melanin. So it means that the melanin is made up of every composite on earth, but one composite that you can't find on earth is in the melanin. And in this case, it's a light particle, which is in the stone, which in actuality is a nuclear device that will blow up and kill everything on this realm that does not have the same energy of that which blows up. So it says in the Gospel of Thomas, heaven is like a mustard seed, which is inside of you. And the plant that my Father did not plant, or the weed that my Father did not plant, cannot be plucked up. Which means, if you are not with the seed, if you are not from that seed of God, then sorry for you, cannot be plucked up. So it's talking about the seed is inside the melanin, which means that we are somewhere that's not local from here. We're not local. We're somewhere, excuse me. We're somewhere in another universe and in another world. And we're about this big. But in this particular atom, or atom, or aton, same thing, atom, atom, or seed, is a whole universe. Go back and see Men in Black. How many people saw the movie Men in Black? You got to see these movies. Especially here, it don't make no sense because you can go to the damn street and get the shit. The mystery of the Men in Black. You got your keychain. In the Men in Black, the whole mystery to the movie was this. They said what? They said that the universe is on Orion. Better saw that? And Orion was a cat. And everybody was looking for the universe, but it was in a little ball on the cat's neck. And when the woman looked into it, it was a whole universe in a ball on the neck. That's exactly what's inside of you. There's a little black dot that's smaller, is housed in the melanin. The melanin is the triple blackness of space, or carbon, that's inside of you. But it's black, but in it is one little small seed, about the size of a grain of salt. And in that seed is about the size of a grain of salt. Inside of that little seed is a whole other universe, where the real you are, because that is the real you. And what has happened is these two eyes have come in and is setting before the real you and magnifying this bullshit. And that's when they say, we used to be gods and we used to be the entities until the giants came, which means now this illusion is magnified and it's blown shit up, and you can't see the real you or the real world because of this shit here is taking the place and covering it up. The veil. But you are in a seed somewhere in another dimension, and you are dreaming from this seed out into this particular dimension, and now you stuck thinking that this shit here is reality when you over here. But this particular seed is the most powerful thing in the universe. It's Sirius B. That's your spirit. It's the most powerful thing in the universe. And it's an atom. And this atom, once activated, can blow up everything that is not of the same origin of this matter, of this atom. So therefore, that which is not in the same origin of you will have to be eliminated from this particular seed. That's the role of alchemy. We'll get back into that particular part. We just got to think, change the way of what we're dealing with at this particular time. The Ark of the Covenant. The Ethiopians built a physical chest that was in Ethiopia that they got from the mysteries of Osiris or Osar, which is when Osiris was cut up, or Osar was cut up into 14 pieces, but at first, and thrown into the catfish, thrown into the Nile, and the catfish ate the penis. You got to go and read the mythology. Before that, when they first killed him, they shut him up in a chest and nailed the chest shut and threw the chest into the Nile. First of all, they invited him to the Last Supper. The original Last Supper was when they had a party and they invited Osiris to the party, and then they killed him. And they also do it in some certain mythological Shakespearean plays, as well as some other things where they invite a person to a party and kill him.
The Mafia does that too.
The Mafia does it. Give you the kiss of death. But anyway, in this particular chest, they shut his body up in this particular chest. And they floated down the Nile. The ancient priests in Egypt or Hemmitt used to build this particular chest of Osiris. The Hebrews, because Moses was a defective priest from the priesthood of Osiris or Osir. You can get the book Moses, Pharaoh of Egypt by Ahmed Osman. Ahmed Osman. You're gonna have it. It's put out by HarperCollins book company, but they have also a international label. I can't think of the name of it, but it's Moses, Pharaoh of Egypt. Also get the Moses Mystery. The Moses Mystery. That's real popular right now. But he was I can't think of the guy's name. Moses Mystery. But anyway, the chest, they used to build this chest in Hemmitt. The Hebrews learned how to build this chest. Now it's interesting because the white boys followed the direction on how you build this so-called Ark of the Covenant in 1967. And they actually built one at the University of Chicago, and it started thundering and lightning and shit. And the United States Army rushed in and made them tear it down. But the key is, if anybody go and see the Raiders of the Lost Ark, the movie, Steven Spielberg studies the occult. You will see the chest. If I can get it straight. You'll see the chest. Let's say it's the chest, which is the chest of Osiris, which is the same Ark of the Covenant. And on the chest, you will see two angels with, let's see if we can get this right. Two angels with their wings on the chest. Anybody saw this movie? Or anybody see the Ark of the Covenant? These two wings are the wings of Ma'at. You ever see the goddess Ma'at or Ma'at? And you see the two wings? These are the wings also of Ma'at. They're showing that this particular chest came out of Egypt or Hemmitt. But it also means this. The power that is in this particular chest is also in you, because the wings of Ma'at also appears on the staff of Tahuti. The same wings of Ma'at on the staff of Tahuti. But in the middle of the staff of Tahuti is the black dot, which is Melanin. So this particular chest equals this particular black dot. This is the true Ark of the Covenant, which has the power to God, the power of God. And as long as the Hebrews, along with the Egyptians or the chosen people, had the Ark of the Covenant, they were invincible. But the reason why we're not invincible is because we suppress this melanin. But as long as you utilize the melanin, and you utilize it through thought, we'll get into that in a few minutes, you are invincible. Invincible, excuse me. Invincible. So the Ark of the Covenant, Ark is also, it's the A-R-K. An ark is also a ship. A ship. Or, if you turn it upside down, a vessel. The white boys talk about spaceships, but you got the original ship, which is the black dot. That's you. That's what the ship is. And some of the things you see in the spaceships is actually us as entities that can take on any form. So this is also called the Ark. So the Ark of the Covenant is also the black dot. Is what it's actually dealing with at this particular time. So now, dealing with some other mysteries, we got a lot to cover. It took them 500 years to produce and put together the complete story of Jesus. It says that what people know about Jesus is different than what is the really scholarly view about Jesus. The entire Bible has less than 2% of the teachings on Jesus, period. So that means, in actuality, you know that the book was borrowed from somebody else. When half the book is less than 2% on the whole teachings of Jesus. But yet the Christian is all in love with Jesus because he don't understand the science behind it. The science behind it. Now, We're dealing with symbology here tonight before we go into the other part. This is real crucial that you understand this in the Egyptian symbology. Try to understand this. Here's another. In Egypt, or in Kemet, you have 3 pyramids. Also represent the 3 stars in Orion's belt. The center star in Orion's belt is Sirius. In Orion's belt. Also representing 3 planets. The 3 planets is Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. Also represents Isis, Horus, Heru, and Osiris. So for the Greek translation, it would be Isis, Osiris, and Horus, the first Trinity. So, this is Heru, Horus, in the middle pillar. This is Isis or Aset. We just put Isis. Or Aset. We just put Aset. Let's put Heru. Aset. And Asar. You are. Asur. Or you are Asar, which is. And it also represents the mystery. How does this break down with us? The mystery of this is Isis represents the pituitary gland. Osiris represents the hypothalamus gland or region. And Heru, which is light, represents the pineal gland in the brain. And between the conjunction of these 3, you get the illumination of the middle pyramid with the capstone in the middle of the middle pyramid, which is Heru, which is both Aset and Osiris and Isis combined into one, their offspring, which is in you. In the Christian symbology, this would be transferred to 1 cross on Calvary, 2 crosses on Calvary, 3 damn crosses on Calvary.
Oh, my.
That's what the shit is. The 3 crosses on Calvary represent the 3 pyramids that you have visually. So you can't find no damn crosses nowhere in the motherfucking Middle East. The only thing you can find is a goddamn pyramid.